Yes, it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. And one of the things that when I had a conversation with Susi recently to prepare for this, I realized is that she's heart and soul in her commitment to the elimination of nuclear weapons, but she also has widened her aperture as she does that. And one of the things we felt that was so important to have her here today was that she could bring to us years of experience, tremendous understanding of what it really takes to have a full presence in society, to change in the ways that we just heard our speakers talk about change. So it's a question of how can we as banks become a big voice against violence, against anything that relates to fighting or to war. And Susi is there for us as a trailblazer and as a guide as we go forward. She's written many books. She's spent 20 years in her own work in activism. She's been focusing on a world free from nuclear weapons, one of her featured books. She's been in media. She's won many, many prizes. The one I really liked was the Foreign Policy Interrupted Prize. That was from Bard College. And Susi, we want to welcome you this evening. Thank you for coming.
Wow. Oh, microphone. Hi, everybody. Hi. Whew, this is great. This is a packed room. I love to speak to a packed room. I love to speak at a session that starts with the idea of Sisyphus. I'm here to talk about peace and building peace and eliminating nuclear weapons. And let me tell you, over the last couple of decades, lots of people have called that a Sisyphean task. Lots. But brothers, sisters, siblings, we're here together to do something about this, to look at the ways and means in which we, not me, not you, but we, can build this more peaceful, just, and resilient society with benefits for everyone. It was a huge honor to be invited here by Banca Etica, Etica SGR, and the Global Alliance. And I want to take a minute to appreciate each and every one of you for coming here as well. Because you're not here just to listen to each other, you're here to communicate, to talk, to build this world together. The world that we want, and to grow a community of financial leaders with the power and vision to do better for everyone. But let's take a look at the world for a second. We've heard of this already, so I won't double up too much. It's bleak. Right? There's a massive war raging in Europe. There's a war raging in the Middle East. Thousands across the globe are risking their lives and their limbs to escape brutality, poverty, and worse. And not to mention, there's rising sea levels, massive wildfires, and other climate change-induced crises. And I work on nuclear weapons. And about a year ago, some scientists predicted that a child born today has a 50% chance of dying in a nuclear war. It's bleak. The risk of total mass destruction on a biblical scale is higher than it's ever been. But there is another side to this story. And it doesn't get the headlines. But it follows our heartlines, it follows our lifelines, it follows us. Every person fleeing from disaster has within them a spark of hope. I know my family, I come from a family of, I'm the second generation refugee, right? And everyone in my family, they fled disaster, and they did it with this spark of hope. Hope that they would make it through. Hope that things would be better for those that came after. Hope that the sacrifices they're making would be worthwhile. And that hope is not blind hope. That hope is not naive. It's not naive to think that the world can be better, because In fact, the evidence is showing that the world is better than it used to be. And although it feels very bleak, the last couple of years have felt very bleak, it's actually better than it's ever been before for more people. There's more equity. There's more access to education. There's more access to healthcare. We've managed to reduce global maternal mortality in the last 20 years by 35%. But people said it couldn't be done, and it happened. We've made change. There are opportunities that are created by individuals with vision, passion, and determination. And I'm looking at you. And you are individuals who can imagine a world where the word war is met with disdain, where creators and builders of weapons of mass destruction are shunned, and where humanitarians are celebrated. This is not imaginary. It's not a world of, pipe dreams. This is a world we are actively building. It's the world that surrounds UN buildings. It's the world that inspires international relations students, that encourages citizens to join their diplomatic corps. Building this world, building this vision, is what inspired you and your institutions to join this alliance, to share the value of doing no harm. It's a world that is actively being built by the dedication of countless individuals who organize, activate, engage, and demand better. And it recognizes that each and every one of us has a right and a responsibility to act against injustice, to demand different from systems of power that profit from instability. And I'll tell you, we are winning. And again, it may not feel like it, but if you look at the way that the defense lobby, in particular, the European defense lobby, has worked so hard to get everybody on message, to get editorials published here, there, everywhere, they are scared of our power. They are on the defensive. And it's not just because of the industry that brings them profit. They are on the defensive because they know the products that they are creating are ones that are not sustainable. I believe that even the most stubborn politicians, the wealthiest weapons CEOs, and the most vocal warmongers can and do change. I know they do. I know it because I've seen us change them. And this is a vision that we strive for, a world that prioritizes sustainability, rejects the catastrophic implications of weapons of mass destruction or nuclear deterrence, and honors those who dedicate their lives to fostering peace and well-being. Peacemakers are heroes. War profiteers are villains. And that's the way it breaks down in this world. And I'm part of building it, and I assume and I am excited that you are part of building this as well. Now, there's lots of different ways to make this world a reality. So I'm going to put some ideas out there because I said, oh, this is a group, I was told this is a group of people. I can put some, big ideas into the room. Some people will react to it well. Some people might think I'm crazy. That's fine. I've been doing this for a long time. You can call me how you want. But I think there's two key ways that we can do more. We can build on this idea. We can create this peaceful world. Education and engagement. First, education. I want to ask you, how many of you tell your clients the things that you get up to? How many of you are going to leave this meeting and send a note out, a newsletter, an update on your website, a message out to your app to tell your clients, hey, I was just in Italy. There was this cool peace declaration. We were met at this foundation where the history of socialism archives were. And we talked about the idea of pushing back against Sisyphean tasks. How many of you are going to send that message out? Anybody? Yeah, there's a couple. All right. Good. Because your clients already trust you. They trust you with their money. They're hard-earned, they're ours. And they trust you to give them good information. They trust that you're doing something right for the world and for them. So when you talk about the things that you're doing like this, It builds that trust, it educates them, and we need more of that. We need you to tell your clients about what peace building means at home, and to ask your clients what peace building means to them. I work on issues of nuclear weapons, and one of the things I do is look at the spending around nuclear weapons. And it's more than $80 billion spent each year on nuclear weapons. So let me ask you this. If you asked your clients, what would you do with $80 billion? You'd say, well, that's an opportunity, because 80 billion wasted. Sorry, for me, 80 billion is like I know you all work in finance, so 80 billion is a real number for you. But for me, it's like, okay, it's $157,000 a minute. That I can deal with, right? But what would you do with that? How would you fix the problems in your community? With 1 minute of nuclear weapons spending, $157,000, what would you do? Why not ask? Start that conversation, engage with your own clients. We've had the privilege of working with a number of financial institutions over the last few years. And Marco mentioned that we were together in New York at the UN. We did some events at the UN, we did some events at Wall Street, and following on from that, a number of the institutions that we worked with, they shared photos. They shared a summary. They shared a message of hope and possibility to their clients. They said, hey, we were there. We were there when, for the first time ever, the United Nations, the body of the United Nations that works on peace and security, these diplomats focused on ending nuclear weapons, said, oh, the financial community has a role to play here and we want to partner with them. They were there and they told their clients about it. You know, it was like a brief paragraph in a quarterly sustainability update, a photo and a tweet. You know, it's not like a big deal. It's not like a huge task. But it helps get the word out. It's education. Why were you there? Oh, because it's part of our core values. You know, this is something I think it's really important. What else did you do there? I heard back from some institutions that did get feedback on those newsletter, and people asked them why. It's like, well, because we can, because this is an opportunity, because you see us engaging on climate change. You see us going to the Convention on Biodiversity, but this is also important. This is something we need for that to work. So they came. When, you know, how did we get this reference? How did we get this this mention? You see it in your bags. We managed to get over 100 institutions to sign on to a statement that was presented by Marco there. That was 110 investors representing over $1 trillion assets under management that said, hey, nuclear weapons are wrong. We want to work with you to do something about this. The statement is a little bit more complicated than that. You know, I'm summarizing for brevity's sake, but we've seen this happen. We've seen this power of cooperation. We've seen it in climate change, we've seen it in biodiversity, and now we're seeing it in nuclear weapons, and we will see it in other peace-building efforts. How can we tell our other people about this? How can we tell people that there are finally, after years of negotiation, there are finally more regulations in the world on firearms than there are on bananas? It took a long time to get there, I'm not gonna lie. But those regulations include the Arms Trade Treaty, which means technically, countries that signed up are not allowed to sell weapons to other countries that are committing human rights abuses. What a great tool, what a great thing. It's super complex and buried under, you know, diplomatic speak, but what a cool thing. And what a great thing that we can tell people about, that we can use our power of communication, our power to educate, to inform others. And I think it's really important to talk about these pieces of international law, even if you don't name exactly what the piece is, because that is what builds sustainable peace. And like every law, not everybody follows every law all the time. I jaywalked twice on my way here. But it helps create a norm. It sets a standard. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? And that's something that we have to do time and time again. We have to remind one another of those standards. We are the bearers, the creators, the strength of those standards. because they come from our vision, they come from our values. But then there's also engagement, right? So there's engaging locally, and I'd love to ask you if, like, I know at least a few of the institutions that are part of the Alliance have really strong connections in their local communities. I don't know all of your institutions. I admit it, there's a lot of you. Like, it's incredible. But you have connections with local communities where you are strong. And, you know, you're connecting with them in ways like sharing office space for, you know, for events. By saying, oh, yeah, you've got something going on? Well, we'll be happy to show up and send a speaker. Or engaging with firms that are developing new technologies, that are looking at how and where their products are going to be changing the world that we live in. I was thinking about this a lot in the context of new technology firms and technology that is being developed to make weapons supposedly more deadly, or more targeted, or more precise. And again, my expertise is nuclear weapons, so when you talk about precision nuclear weapons, like that's just a big dumb joke, because nuclear weapons are designed to kill 100,000 people like that. There is no precision when it comes to nuclear weapons. They're big, dumb, dirty bombs. But other technologies, as you're engaging and looking at the ways and means that technology companies are developing as they come to you for financing, put some guardrails out there. You have that power, you have so much power. It's very cool. We have a lot that we can do, and we have to work with each other to set up those guardrails, not just in this room, but through the globe, looking at ways and means to do this, looking at ways that we make sure we protect human rights, because a lot of our institutions and a lot of our activities kind of also take on a human rights lens, and I think that is really important. I also want to know, and I'm thinking about how we engage with entities from whom we get services, from whom we buy products, things like MSCI. I mean, I think that we need to start telling MSCI that their off-the-shelf products cannot include controversial weapon producers. Like, I don't know, some people want to say all weapons producers, some people want to limit to controversial weapons. Pick your battle, pick your choice. But MSCI, you shouldn't have a standard index that has weapons producers in it. That should not be the norm, because it is not normal. Then I ask, and I think, again, coming back to engagement at home, how and where we're building long-term, sustainable efforts for peace. Because I've been doing this for 25 years, give or take, and I love it. And I do this, you know, because of the kindness of others. I do this because I have worked my ass off to make the resources available. But it would be really helpful for others who could be peace builders if you had in your institutions maybe some donor-advised funds that could slide a little cash to peace organizations, to institutions that do work on these issues, to support community peace-building initiatives. You know, think globally, but also act locally. I gotta ask, some of the organizations here I know make available on their website, for example, crowdfunding possibilities for local organizations to raise money for their issues, for their activities. It's a great example of, again, giving back to the local community. And it's a way to continue to build trust with clients. They look to you, they trust you with their money. I bet they'd trust you to help guide them with their charitable giving as well. And I have to ask, what about your employees? I always ask these questions. Like I said, I ask some, tough questions sometimes. But are your employees, do you give them time off to volunteer for stuff? Because it's cool, it's a great thing to do. Do you have matched funds if they want to donate to certain charities? Do you help them by matching? Do you have chats and bring in speakers, to talk about the main issues pressing in the community or in the world? It's nice, and it helps build this sense of community and ownership, collective ownership over these global challenges that it will take global response to solve. And we have to turn these ideas and the vision that we have into concrete plans, into reality. And we have a plan to end nuclear weapons, right? Like, we had first, it was stigmatize the weapons, make everybody understand that these weapons are designed to destroy cities. There are bombs in Europe that are designed to bomb Europe. There is no help possible. We worked at the Red Cross and we helped governments see that there is no hope. There's no soup and blankets if a nuclear bomb goes off in your neighborhood. We stigmatized the weapons. Then we made them illegal. And we got an international treaty that made them illegal. And that was not easy, but we did it, right? They told us we were absolutely insane. The US ambassador held a press conference saying we're boycotting these talks and gave us massive press and coverage in the New York Times because of it. But we did it, we have a plan. Now our plan is to abolish these weapons, to get more countries on board this treaty, to make sure it's workable, to increase that stigma, to talk about the money around nuclear weapons. We have a week of action in June, and we're going to talk about the money around nuclear weapons. And to work with everyone who wants to work with us to do this. So I would love it if everyone left here and told folks you were here, told folks you talked to this Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Let me tell you, the mayor of Oslo is amazing. But, that you talk to somebody about this idea of a world free of nuclear weapons, that it's possible. And because it is. It's 9 men who control nuclear weapons. 9 men, we have to change their minds. That's it. It's nothing. I can change 9 guys' minds before, the end of the day. I can bet you. But we also have to build peace and build a longer-term sustainable peace. And that means building up the foundations of our society, building up the laws and the norms. And you do that in your work. You do that in who you talk to, what you talk about. I do that. And we do it together. And we have to say that things that are wrong are wrong. And you know what sucks? We have to say it a lot. Over and over and over again. We have to repeat our vision. We have to repeat our values. It's like if you're a parent telling your kid not to touch the hot thing on the stove. You have to do it more than once. You have to do it over and over and over again. It's part of the job. Just as part of our job is to say the wrong things are wrong and that there is an alternative. Because every time we do that, we reinforce the stigma. We reinforce the fact that certain things have no legitimacy in the world. And that works. It works in the nuclear weapons field. The delegitimization of the weapons made Russia walk back threats to use them. 3 times we did that after the war in Ukraine started. 3 times we got threats recanted because of the stigma, because of our collective efforts. As public stigma grows around the evils in the world, more and more opportunities and alternatives emerge. Because instead of investing in the arms industry, there's investing in city infrastructure to make your city much nicer. A city with good public transit and lots of bike lanes is way cooler to live in than a city based on car culture. It just is. And that's what all the top 100 cities in the world's lists always talk about. We know that our efforts around delegitimization work, including our cooperation in the financial community. And we know that it worked on cluster bombs. We got Lockheed Martin, one of the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world, to stop making cluster bombs because they wanted to be open to investment again. Just a year and a half ago, a UK institution, a UK company, Serco, said they weren't going to bid on a nuclear weapons contract ever again because of the pressure from the ESG community. They wanted to be investable. We know this works. It takes time. Everything takes time. Everything good takes time. But it works. There is evidence that cooperation drives positive change. And it may seem impossible. And especially sometimes, you know, I wake up and I turn on the news and it's the worst thing to do, the first thing you wake up in the morning, and it's like war, 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 famine, 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 and it's awful. It sells newspapers or sells advertising time on TV news, because that's what I watch. You know, we have to look closer for the good stories and tell those. That's part of our job. When we take action for peace and tell others about it, we're building the world that we want to see. When we set up donor-advised funds and we invite our clients to invest in them, we're doing that. We're saying this is part of building the world that we want to see. When we work together with local organizations to help share their efforts, publicize them, maybe do skills training for their boards of directors, because sometimes they don't have the greatest skills. We help build the world that we want to see. We can do this together. Sometimes they have really good skills. We have so many opportunities, so many possibilities, if we carry the hope and the vision forward. I am so confident that in about a generation or less, people will look back at this time, at this crossroads, and they will judge who chose to keep going blindly down one path and who chose to create a new way, to turn off the road. People choose paths that lead to the world they want. And as we share our vision of the world we want, we build that path, we make it stronger. I'm confident that people will look back at us and say, they were crazy, but they did it anyway. And that's something I think we can all take and we can all carry forward with us. It may seem impossible, but we can do it anyway. Just look at what we've done in building this collection of people in this room today. Thank you.